Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creative Journaling for Technologists. Today's speaker is going to be Brittany Braxton. Brittany is a software engineer at Duo Security. She enjoys crafting, coding, and cats, all while enjoying a good cup of tea. Brittany strives to connect with folks who geek over code with hopes to contribute to a friendly and inviting tech community. Brittany, I'll hand this over to you now.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here today to talk about creative journaling. Thank you so much to Microsoft Reactor for having me today. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So just to give you a little bit of expectation of what we'll be doing today, here's a little agenda of what we'll be going through. We're starting right now at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to do an intro, talk about what makes journaling rad. We'll be going through starting your own journal and also setting intentions, thinking about reflection and goal setting. Feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A box. I will be willing to stop periodically throughout the workshop today for questions. We'll be taking a break, excuse me, in between to go and stretch your legs, use the restroom, hydrate, and I'll also take that as an opportunity also for Q&A. All right, cool. So just as Farah said, I'm Brittany Braxton. I'm a software engineer at Duo Security. Here's my really cute cat, Coltrane. He's sleeping right now. It's been kind of a rainy day here in Michigan, so I don't know if he'll make an appearance or not, but you at least have one photo. For social media, feel free to follow me on Twitter. I'm MinTB. I'm also on Instagram at tnotes.dev. That's also the name of my website. You can go to tnotes.dev for my blog. It's kind of a work in progress, but you can also follow blogs and some illustrations there. And I will be posting later today my slides and any other additional content about creative journaling. So feel free, that URL is not launched just yet, but feel free to just take note of that. Yes. So the materials that you'll need today, you'll need a journal, a notebook of some capacity, or even just about 10-15 sheets of paper. I recommend having like a schedule, a typical schedule for yourself available. So as we go through the workshop, you can know about, things to think about for your own personal schedule as we create a journal. And then a ruler, a marker, some pens, or a pencil is also necessary. So I've got all those things here. And then everything else is just kind of, bonus. If you have stickers, you can use some stickers. If you got washi tape, which is like this cute kind of like patterned masking tape, you can use that. Stencils, paint, whatever sparks joy, that's all definitely bonus material. All right, and like I said, our objective today is to get started with a new journal. So these are the steps that can get you going and developing your practices and your systems. And yeah, we're at the end of the 2020, so I hope that this could be something that you can start off with the new year with some new habits. And for your consideration, let's go ahead and keep an open mind. Like I said before, feel free to ask questions. I don't expect you to follow everything that I'm about to tell you, because even I don't. With days and weeks, there's different needs and different ways that I'm going to journal. And 2020 has been understandably a very hard year, so have grace and patience with yourself. This isn't something that I'm expecting you to be perfect about. This is just something for you to be reflective and, develop a new strategy on how we think and how do we process our goals and stuff. So have some patience with yourself with that. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Our first topic today is going to be about what makes journaling rad. I'm going to talk about some research and some points of interest that you might like. So journaling is really awesome because it helps to keep a track of what you're learning, such as maybe you're learning how to program, maybe you're learning a new language, maybe you're learning I don't know, learning how to cook. A lot of those are different opportunities to be able to journal. You could journal about what you're learning, what you need to learn. So if you're learning how to program JavaScript, but maybe you want to dive deeper into a particular area of JavaScript that you want to, learn. Like maybe you want to learn React, or maybe you want to learn TypeScript. Journaling can be a really great way to keep track of some of those things of what lies ahead in your roadmap. And then journaling can also be a great way just to keep track of how well you're doing with your craft. If I say that I'm a crocheter, but I'm not really keeping a regimen about that, I only crochet one thing a year, maybe taking an opportunity for me to journal about that and keep in check about what kind of things I want to do with crochet, I could be able to achieve that with journaling. Okay. Just checking the Q&A. So a lot of what I do with creative journaling, the titular creative journaling, can be inspired by bullet journaling, which you may have heard. It's really popular online. You see a lot of really beautiful spreads on like Instagram or Pinterest. It's popularized by a particular person who created it called Writer Carroll. And even for him, he says that your bullet journal is like a living autobiography, kind of like what I said before, is keeping track of what you're learning, what you're doing. Overall, it's about building a process of self-awareness. Now, when you go on Instagram, you go on Twitter, you go on Pinterest, you may see like these really beautiful, very complex spreads of someone doing bullet journaling. And for Writer, he says that the only thing that matters with your bullet journal is the content, not necessarily the presentation. So please keep that in mind. Like even the person who created it says that that's not that's not the end goal of this. If you can elevate both the content and the presentation, then my hats are off to you. You can be creative in a lot of different ways, which I'll show you today, that aren't necessarily, very elaborate, beautiful spreads. Of course, unless that's something that you like. So this is kind of an example of what I'm talking about. I feel like these are really beautiful, but there's kind of a connotation to this about, I have to be if I want to be in tune with my productivity and my goals, I have to create something that's very elaborate. I have to do something that's very colorful and visually, pleasing. And I think that's all just false expectations to the craft. So during this workshop, I want you to think about how you can turn your pages of your journal into, here's some other phrases I like to use, like systems for success. Think about it as like an unbiased listening ear. If I'm going to write out all of my thoughts and my worries and my frustrations right now, on a piece of paper, a piece of paper is not going to tell me if I'm right or wrong. They're just going to listen. Maybe you want to have it as a safety deposit box. Put in your little goals, your secrets and stuff. No one else has to see it. I also like the analogy of like your journal can be like your laundry folding table. So if you go to a laundromat, usually you're bringing in a big tub of laundry, you wash and dry it, and then you pour it all out onto the provided large laundry tables, and you fold up your pieces and you sort them. Think about your journal in those kind of perspectives more than these really beautiful elaborate spreads or any other preconceived notions that you may have. Think about it in a broader term. And journaling, and a lot of this is to say like journaling is not the end goal. Your end goal is you reaching your goal. So you use journaling to be able to process and think about, where are you at right now? What do I want to do moving forward? Where do I want to be in the next 5-10 years? You being able to show up and have intention with your journal allows you to get to those goals. Simply just having a journal is not going to be the thing that achieves that. So some of the things, again, to reiterate, like what makes journaling important, let's take a look at some of the research, right? Journaling has been shown to help with your decision making and your critical thinking, being able to write out, even just the ebb and flow of your life, or even a particular problem. allows us, research has shown, to come up with a better solution to the issue than if we weren't to sit down and be reflective. If you've experienced any sort of like traumatic events, I would even say 2020 is a traumatic event. You know, if you take the time to be reflective and journal, research has shown that it helps with your emotional well-being, and it helps increase your life perspective. So you're not so like, you know, drilled down to the moment of like, oh, this is so awful, this is really bad, but let's reflect on how that could be even broader approached. And then journaling can also be really helpful for how we learn. Journaling can help create additional associations in our mental patterns of what we're learning. So in order for us to be able to recall and recall something that we learn, like using our long-term memory, if we have more connections to different other things that we know, that helps us to recall it faster. Either that's with like really practicing and training, like if I throw 100 free throws in basketball 100 times a day, I'm forming different mental patterns each time I throw it and how I'm learning, versus if I just do it, you know, one time a week or something. So journaling can be thought about that too, of like, if every time I'm opening this up to process how I'm going through and going about my life, I am able to encode and learn more of, you know, whatever topics. And I also want to just highlight somebody that when I was reading and doing some research about journaling, Sarah Koss, the founder of Swell, these really beautiful water bottles, she came up when she was an MBA student. She was assigned with the task of journaling, and even she thought, she's like, do I really want to do this? Like journaling, I'm an MBA student. I should be networking. I should be going out and meeting people and making these connections. But at the end of this class, she was really surprised at how well journaling helped her with focusing her strengths, identifying her joy, and also just appreciating the small progress of, you know, going through school, building a business, any other types of goals. She said that it was really helpful for her to have patience with it, of like, I want to get somewhere over here, but, you know, I'm currently at this point. What are the small steps for me to actually get to that end goal? And we can see journaling is recognized in a lot of different other areas, especially in art. So for example, Oprah Winfrey, she's been writing in her journal since she was 7. She's got like a whole page on her website of like the different journals throughout her time, including the journal that she wrote while she was filming The Color Purple. Marie Curie, you know, Nobel Prize winner, she has a journal. She kept all of her notes about her research in journals. And then you can even see it in like the appreciation of artists and how they keep their journals. Smithsonian has a really wonderful online collection of different American artists and you know what they keep in their diaries. And even right now, Smithsonian has this hashtag Moments of Resilience that I found. They are encouraging people to share with them how they are processing 2020, how are they dealing with the pandemic, and one of them is, you know, sharing us your journal entries. And a lot of what I'll be talking about today is, you know, focusing on journaling by hand. People often say, oh, I don't like journaling by hand. I like to type it up on a computer. I really encourage you to think about the mode of how you're doing this, because once again, research shows that journaling by hand is better for you in terms of synthesizing your thoughts, allowing you to have more connections to ideas. Even just the mechanical practice of you slowing down to write out your words is more helpful for you to be reflective and process an experience. When we're typically typing things up by computer, there's usually more of a stream of conscious. Like, I don't know about you, like when I was in college, if I remember trying to take notes on my computer, I kind of just become like a little mini stenographer. I'm just type, word by word, and I'm not really processing what's happening. And then what people often experience too when they're typing by computer is they delete a lot. So you're censoring yourself before you can even really get to the nitty-gritty of what's happening. And then lastly, once again, you can see the evidence shows that with learning and being reflective with it, with a journal, helps us increase our neuroplasticity. So that's once again, the interconnectedness of between the different parts of our brain that can help with memory and recall. So if you think about these 4 different topics, you can see that these are things that could be found within a journal. Focus, concentration. I am reading a book and I'm writing my notes down, and I'm going to maybe as I'm reading that book, I can generate ideas and write up a synopsis of what my takeaways are with it. Emotion, building curiosity for the topic. You know, maybe I have like other ideas that come up along the way as I'm reading a book, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I could probably, you know, explore that later. And then doing that with like frequency and, you know, rehearsing, which is just like going over our notes again and again, helps overall with us increasing our learning. So I'm going to stop right there. That is just our stop for our first section. Are there any questions? Okay, I don't see any questions so far. I'm going to take a sip of tea and see if anything comes in. Otherwise, let us get going. We're starting a journal. So I encourage you all. I love seeing people's journals. I encourage you all to take a picture if you would like to share like what your notebook looks like. Today I have this really pretty green kind of speckled journal. It's got a graph line paper. And yeah, I typically like to find like really cheap but really beautiful notebooks. So I like to go on like wish.com or Amazon, or even like go to like Five Below in my local area and find like really cheap notebooks. I'll share some resources of some of the tools I like to use at the end of this talk. But yeah, if you have a notebook you want to share, go ahead and use the hashtag visualizeIT on Twitter, and I'll take a look at those later. So what we're going to do first is we're going to start with a table of contents. And I'm going to also slide this over so boom, you can see my desktop. So a table of contents is going to be really helpful as you're going through a journal to be able to capture all the high level things on one page. So you're not having to go and flip through the journal every time. So if I switch back, you'll see here my table of contents. This is two different journals, but I kind of just capture different page numbers and everything of different topics that I encounter. So we're just going to start first with writing table of contents. I'm using a glittery green pen because why not? And I'm going to use my ruler to write a little line. And then I say this is the midpoint. All right. So the next part we're going to do is we're going to actually number our pages. So if you already have your pages that are, if you already have a notebook with numbered pages, let me just show you an example of that. Some journals you may already have page numbers, and that's awesome. If you, I've seen a lot of like bullet journals nowadays come with this stuff already set up. Like this journal has a page of contents, table of contents already built in the front. You could do that, but that's not limiting. You could definitely do this with like a spiral bound notebook. Like I said, a printer paper. You could even do it with some Post-it notes if you want. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start numbering our pages. Let's just count up to, let's say 10 for today. So just follow along with me. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to post them. I'm actually going to switch pens because this is a little bit of a juicy pen. And I'm hesitating because I don't want the pages to smear. So 3, 4, and I'm actually going to skip I actually like to do just counting the evens first with an unpage numbered notebook. I'm not going to sit here and write all of them. We'll be here until this evening. So I'm going to go 6, 8, and then 10. Cool. So like I said, this is going to be helpful for us as we get started with it. I also like to, I'm going to switch back to my slides. I also like to, when I have a new notebook, I like to leave a few pages in the front reserved for what I like to just categorize as like exploratory pages. So for example, let me go ahead and switch back to my tabletop. For example, in this existing notebook, I have set aside pages to do kind of like a year at a glance. This is a little zoomed in. No, okay. So yeah, as you can see, I have like a year at a glance, and you know, this is probably an example of where like some stickers, or like if you have a printer, it'll come in really handy because you don't have to write this all out by hand. You could just simply, there's stickers available where it's a really nice size thumbnail, so you can just put in. But I like this. So this is for my work journal. And I really like doing this because currently my company, we work in sprints. And so I like to list all the different sprints out, and I can just kind of have that at glance in my journal rather than like, you know, trying to find it in Confluence or try to find it in some document or something. I could just kind of have it here for reference. Okay, so I have a question here. How do you expand your table of contents as you fill out your journal? And what is deemed worthy of adding to the table of contents? That's a really good question. So I usually try to keep like high level things like, you know, special events or something that I have, like, so this is my journal when I first started my job at Duo. So, you know, all the different things about getting started with our different applications and tools. Let's see, this is probably not a good example. High level, I usually like to keep like, I'll list the month. Here we go. I'll list the month. And that's where I know, like, okay, I can flip to when July started. If I have like any sort of workshops that I've gone to, like here I attended like a Sumo Logic Jam, I'll list that because I'm going to have some notes that I want to go back to reference. If I'm reading a book, I'll also put some notes here. So I usually try to keep it high level like that. As you see here on the other side, I have like, this is kind of like the reserve exploratory pages I kind of mentioned before. So I already had those kind of lined up when I started this journal. And then my first month of the journal was May. So I try to keep it like that. You know, this is once again a pre-printed journal where they gave me a lot of room to work with. You know, I typically don't use too much for my table of contents to need more room. This I just did 2 pages with this pink journal. I barely even finished the first page, but they actually gave me 2 pages to work with. So, you know, saving, like I would say, like 2, maybe 3 pages is good. It's a place to come to when you're trying to, you know, use a reference. So just think about it like if you're in a textbook, what are some of the things that they're listing in their table of contents? I hope that helps. Feel free to ask me another question in QA if you want some more clarification. Okay, so so we're going to go ahead and pull out our schedule. Let's take a look at your typical week and roll and play with that with this journal today. You don't need to share with me what your schedule is. This is just more of an aid for yourself for the next steps. The first one we're going to do is going to start creating a monthly layout. So a monthly layout is going to be you writing out a month where it's more structure. It's a high level overview about what to anticipate for the next month. Things to think about are like the big events that are on your radar. Maybe you have like some training that's coming up. You've got a conference that's coming up. Maybe there is going to be a really big production deploy for your application. I don't encourage you to just necessarily copy everything that's like in your Outlook calendar. Think deeper about what's necessary for you to track. So I have here a couple of different examples of some of the ways I've made monthly layouts for myself personally. Starting at the top, I have a 2-page spread where I have just like these thumbnails of different days of the month. And then I just kind of write in, different events, when I'm taking vacation or when I'm on a conference. Here's another 2-page spread, where I've kind of turned the page on the side and I've drew out my calendar. And then at the bottom, I have like a kind of like a retro reflection, like what's working well for me, what am I happy about, what am I sad about, what am I, I'm okay with. I used to do this at a previous company to help out with like knowing what effective things to bring to retro. So, just to kind of keep a high level thought and consideration for how our team is doing. In the next, on the top right, I have once again a 2-page spread. I have a smaller calendar, and then I have just kind of spread out like these different columns of like my goals. I apologize, this might be a little hard to read, but it says this month's goals, this month's habits, and notes and ideas. And then I reserve the opposite page for a monthly review at the end of the month. And then I can ask some questions. I kind of did that down here. I asked some questions of like, what's working, what's not working, what can I simplify, and what needs to change. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to try out this bottom right one. And I'm going to walk through how I set that up. So we're going to come back over here. And like I said before, you can leave those first few pages for exploratory things. So how about I use this for like my 2021. I'm just going to kind of mark it high level right now. And then I'm going to come back here to my table of contents. And then I'm going to say page 1. That's where my 2020 calendar is located. And then I'm going to reserve my next page. I like to just have on the front of my journal a goal dump. It's got kind of a silly name, but essentially it's, I'm going to put here any sort of ideas I have throughout this time of this journal. Like maybe I have a goal for, I want to learn, what do I want to learn? I want to learn Flutter. I'm trying to learn Flutter and be like a mobile developer. So learn Flutter, ship an app, something like that. You can do this much more pretty if you like, but I like to just, like I said, reserve that space. So we're kind of going through what I do to start a journal. So just keep that in mind. So page 3, but really what we're about to start is we're about to do our monthly reflections, our monthly layout. So let me get a pen. So I'm going to start off with my Micron Sakura. Yeah, let's do it as January, right? So I like to write the month up in the top right. And then January is what? 31 days? Yes. Always got to double check. So I like to just start from the bottom. This is going to be where I have a line for each day. And then I'm going to have reflection on the side. And what you can do is you can, like I said, you can just do like your high level things. So we'll write page 5 just so I have that out of the way. And then we're going to start with 31, 30, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 16. Ooh, oh, that was a close one. I usually like to start at the bottom, so that way I know if I have enough room for the whole page for the dates, because I definitely have like started too high up, and I'm like, oh wait, I've only written like, you know, from the latter half of the month. What else do I have over on this picture? Oh, so this month's focus, this month's habits and notes. So we'll draw some little boxes for that. And notes. And I'll just kind of leave that more free form because my notes are often just kind of all over the place. Notes meaning like, you know, maybe I like to throw up here like things to consider for next month. So like maybe February, I'm doing like a book drive. You know, quarterly planning is coming up. And over here, you know, this is where you want to maybe capture some of the things that are happening just to keep up ahead, up front. So like maybe from the 8th to the 12th, I have a conference coming up, and I'm going to label that in green because it's awesome and I'm really excited. And green is such a happy color. And maybe down here, I am going on a vacation. Who knows what that will look like? This is all entirely hypothetical, but hopefully this is kind of helping you out. Maybe it's just a staycation. That's how all of my vacations have been this year. Staycations, well, I run how I ever wanted. Yeah, vacation, have to get away. And so that's kind of what I have on this side. I like to use this box for focus of like, you know, what am I going into this month thinking? Maybe I am, maybe I have kind of like a quantitative goal that I have here of increase my number of completed stories for work. Got to ship more. And then the habits. This can kind of go in a little bit of a couple of different directions. Usually you'll see people kind of do like a habit tracker of tracking every day of the week. So if you do like a Saturday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, and Sunday. And then you'll have like a little spot here. Maybe I'm tracking, what am I tracking? Like maybe my water. It's always good to stay hydrated. Pages read. And so you can go through the month. Actually, yeah. This is a little bit off, but you could go through and you could track. This is probably better for like a weekly layout. I apologize. You can go through and you can just kind of cross out as you achieve those. If you want some better examples, tweet at me and I can try to provide you some better examples. I don't often use a habit tracker. I will admit that live on camera, but people often like to have them here on their monthly spreads. Okay, cool. And then on the other side, I apologize, it's a little greeny. On the other side, you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna leave this for reflections. So I usually kind of just cut off the top portion. I like to use that for some more notes. And then monthly reflections. And then usually I'm pretty good at just asking at least 4 questions. There's always different ways that you can go about assessing this. So for example, right now in my work journal currently, I usually just kind of keep like a post-it note of some questions. Sometimes I don't answer all of these. Sometimes I just answer one. So let's go ahead and let's write some of these here. I do it a little bit different nowadays, where I just kind of open up a new page instead of having it in this predefined format. So how do I feel I did this month? How do I feel I did this month? Has anything stopped my goals? What's not working? And what can I stop? So at the end of the month, you come back to this page and you have filled it out. You could always too, if this is not enough space, and that's kind of the issue I started to run into, you can always like say, okay, well, maybe this is on page 7. And you can get to, you can list here that it's on page 7, but actually you're going to write out your monthly reflection here. There's some different things like that you can do of just how you organize it. Something someone told me recently is that a lot of this kind of helps to capture like how non-linearly we think, but putting it into a bit more of like a tangible format. Yes. So that's monthly. And so, like I said, I'll go ahead and I'll put that in my table of contents. Switch back over. And we're going to do weekly next. So January 21 on page 5. So as time goes on, when I'm working with this, you know, there's a lot of other stuff that's happening. Like maybe I'll write in my my notes as I'm working. I'll put in my reflections. It's usually not like this kind of stark of like I do my month and I start my week, but this is just all just for high level example. My weekly is going to be a bit more of looking at overall your schedule, your calendar. So this is, once again, you can look at your schedule that you pulled up, just kind of see like what kind of format do you like, what kind of things do you want to track. It also could be a way for you to have a heads up for next week. So I usually like to write my weekly layouts on the weekends, so that gives me my heads up for the next week. I feel pretty prepared by Monday, and you know, that 4-hour meeting that happens on Thursday isn't a big surprise because I already anticipated that with my time. All right, so let's go ahead and, wrong button. So here's a couple examples of some weekly spreads. In the top left, we have here, once again, it's a 2-page system. The top left, I have horizontally, I've listed out my dates. and I'm just kind of doing kind of like a to-do list with some symbology. On the opposing page, I list important dates, things to prioritize, a time tracker, a weekly check-in. This was a lot of stuff I was trying out, just kind of throwing different things onto a page to see if it was at all useful. As you see, spoilers, it wasn't all very useful because it's all blank. But that's a way that you learn about how what's most effective for you as you journal. At the bottom, I have a 2-page spread where I have going across both pages Monday through Friday. And then I have gratitude. And then I save some section at the bottom in my weekly spread for my projects. This top right one is actually what I do currently professionally. I actually just write out for 2 weeks because that's how that's our sprints. So I wanted to make sure that I'm giving myself enough time to be successful throughout the whole sprint. Because one week may be super busy and the other week may be light. So I just wanted to write that out in that anticipation. Any questions so far about the monthly or weekly? Feel free to add it into the Q&A. Definitely keeping an eye out on that. I'm going to go ahead and get started next with our weekly spread, and I'm going to try this bottom one. So I'm going to switch back over to my tabletop so you can see me go through that. Okay, so we're going to continue to this hypothetical scenario of we're getting ready for January. So let's do, actually, I can just look at a calendar. What is the first week of January? Let's do the second week of January. So it starts on January 4th to January 8th. And I usually, I like to do my work spreads for the week with just Monday through Friday. You could also do, yeah, let me actually draw that out really quick. We'll do, so there's a couple different ways that you can do this. I like to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday. So that way I just maximize as much space as I need for the work week. Like that. I also have seen Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So you got all 7 days of the week listed on the page. And I do this for my personal journal because every day I've got something going on personally. But since I don't work on the weekends, I don't feel that it's necessary to add that in. So I don't do that. Another idea that you can do when you're making your weeks is maybe you still have things that you want to capture, but it still doesn't take the whole focus of your journal. So something that people also do is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you do a Saturday/Sunday. Let's make sure that that's all nice and in focus. I'm sorry about that. So you still can be able to keep a capture of your Saturday and Sunday, but it doesn't take up as much space. So those are some different options. I'm going to go with this first option. So I'm going to flip to the next page and we'll draw that spread. Sometimes I feel like the weekly spreads take a little bit more math, so bear with me as I just make sure that I get enough space for everything. I'm going to switch to my pencil. So I have 12 centimeters. 24 squares, 24, 25, 50, 50 divided by 5. We can do about what? Let's do 9 squares. So that's 8, 9. Oh, these are not the most even, so Wednesday always kind of gets on the middle, along the crack. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday. Cool. Let's see, what's the color? I've got this whole 10 of colors, by the way, that I'm pulling from, and I usually like to just keep this on my desk, and I'm a pretty visual learner, so as you probably see so far, I like to use a lot of color. So now I've marked out my my days, so now I'm just going to use a marker to make that top line. Oops. Okay. And so this is kind of where you could probably want to play around with how much room you want to add. I'm just going to kind of eyeball this now, and I'll show you in a second of something that you can kind of consider as you write your weekly spreads. And yes, I actually have some extra room, it looks like. So we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Yes. And we're going to let's do some nice cursive. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, teaser, not as fun, and then Friday. So on that example, I kept the portion below for gratitude. I really think it's important, and research also shows that it is a really important practice. Taking a moment to just kind of mention some gratitude, even if it's just the smallest stuff. It doesn't always have to be the most, monumental, like, oh, I had a really good cup of tea today, or my cat was actually behaving. It's good to just kind of capture some of that gratitude. So I'm going to divide it for each day, and then I can just kind of list that here as I go. Like I said, I have this extra space over here, so maybe in this box here, I'll add that labeling. Gratitude. And I'll add some hearts. This could be just a fun free space. How about we add a sticker? I wish I had it like a cheer track. Yeah. I've got some really fun stickers here that I purchased from Joanne Fabrics, and it's called what is it called? The Goal Girl. But it's just got these like really fun stickers, and this looks like it actually could fit. How about we use set goals and crush them? Just some fun little affirmations. It's going to cut off Friday, but that's okay. Oh, and of course, we need to actually label what is this date, right? So I said it was January 4th to the 8th. So I'll squeeze that in. Okay. So this is at the high level. This is what the spread looks like. This is a bit more rushed than even what I'm doing right now. I usually like to just add a little bit of visual interest and just kind of track my projects in like these little triangles. I personally use like Asana right now for my personal projects. So, maybe I have a project here, and let's see, I am working on my tnotes.dev website. And maybe here I want to capture some of the things that I've already have listed in Asana, but I just have it listed here for my reference, and also just to see it, set up with a different view of like everything else that's going on. So what do I have to do next? I need to I need to work on my blog, the blog post design. And add pictures. Can add pictures. So you can do whatever you want here. Maybe there are examples you see online of something with a bit more structure or different ways to capture it, but I've always just felt like I'm already capturing this stuff digitally. What I'm trying to do here is be able to see it represented in another light, so I know that it's something that I can actually achieve for the week, and it's also something that is on my radar. So when it comes to, like I said before, you can organize these days however you want. One way is maybe you want to just have it enumerated by the hour. So starting at 9 o'clock, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then from there, kind of like in a format of monthly, you can kind of just color a little portion that shows what's happening during that hour. So 12 o'clock, I want to have lunch. 4 to 5, I want to work on something. Maybe at 9 o'clock, I have a meeting. And I really prefer this layout right now because at a glance, I can kind of see, I can see visually what just how busy is my day project. Another way that you can do in these spaces is to just do kind of like a little to-do list. So maybe I want to put here update computer. Oh, we always have those updates, right? And we always continue to send them like, oh, remind me later. No, let's just get that done today. Maybe I need to talk to Bob about the project. You can put that here, and what people, a lot of like originally with like bullet journaling is you have some sort of like symbology that you're using to help with explaining what's happening here. What I mean by that is, with these cute little boxes, you could simply check it off. You can do something, say like it's been migrated, or maybe it's just irrelevant. You can do different little symbologies like that if you just kind of have like a to-do list. And I've tried that a couple of ways. So there's a couple of examples, like even with Writer Carroll's bullet journal book, he shows some different ways that you can use icons and a legend to work with your bullet journal. Okay, so this is our weekly spread. Next, we're going to be working on our daily spread. Just a shout out again, if you have any questions. Oh wait, do I have questions? Oh my goodness, I do have questions. I didn't scroll down. I am so sorry. Is writing in pencil better so I can edit it? Yes, it is. Well, if you're making like these different spreads, it could be nice because you may mess up. As you saw, I was pretty careful with drawing out my weekly spread because I wanted to be sure that the boxes are even. So I'll do a pencil first. I'll even just do kind of like little tick marks, and then I'll go back over with pen marker just to make sure I have that color. I'm so sorry about missing all these questions. Goodness, that's a good one. Do you generally recommend a journal for each aspect of your life? For me personally, it helps because I just I want to be sure that I'm keeping a nice like division between them. I have kind of been considering, as I've been like at home during this pandemic, of what it would look like to merge them all together into one big book. Especially like the scheduling process of it, because you know, the way I work right now is a bit more flexible. You know, maybe it's wake up at this time, do some work, do some personal stuff, go back to work. It's a bit more mixed than how it was when I was in the office. I say, you know, try off with one, and if you feel that you're running out of space, that's probably the first example. If you're running out of space, then you might want to switch to a different journal. Or if you feel like there's just a lot to kind of like flip through and manage, I think that could also be an opportunity to add a second journal. Cool. Next question. What do you do with a page with a big error? Oh, yes, that's a good question too. I have, I always keep some whiteout on me. I have like these little like, this is by Tombow, but let me just illustrate it on my camera. It's not wet. It's almost like tape, and so you could just press it, and then it glides across, and you can get the paper. You cover it, the ink. So I use one of these. This is one iteration. I have one by Bic also. You might see these a bit more widely available, like at your local Walmart, Office Max, or even the dollar store. And I like to carry these around. It's really up to personal preference. Sometimes people also like to just cover mistakes with washi tape or cover it with a sticker. You know, I definitely don't recommend like just rip the paper out. There's other ways that you can kind of preserve it. That's a very good question. Thank you, Wendy. I'm liking this presentation a lot. Thanks so much for making this available. I'll share this video when it comes. Yes, absolutely. We got a lot of fun content that's talking about visual IT right now. So if you check out like the dev community, there's some posts that are being put up by the team about this event today. So please do share it with your friends. I use erasable markers. Target has some good ones for under $20, and it's a worthy investment for bullet journaling. Yes, I do have some friction pens. I haven't really jammed with it too much, but I know that there's a really wonderful line of friction. So here's one that's a black ink, and what this is, it's like thermodynamic ink. So you can scribble it, and then it's got kind of like this eraser bit, and you can rub, and it will go away just by the friction of the eraser to the pen. I always thought that was kind of scary, because the warning is don't leave your notebooks in your car on a hot day, because you may come back to an empty notebook. But if that's not something that you typically run into, then yeah, go ahead and check those out. And do you use multiple bookmarks? Yeah, this example journal that I'm using today does not have any. And I would say that is an unfortunate detriment, because having some ribbons just to kind of keep your place is really helpful. If you take a look at my work journal, this is a Leuchtturm. It's a really nice journal from a German company. And they come with two different ribbons. So I have my ribbon, my first one in the front on my goal dump, and I can see my year at a glance. And then I always keep my second ribbon at like what I was last working on. It's like, this is my work from just yesterday, Friday. My favorite journal is the minimalism art, which is what I will list at the end of my slides. Oh wait, no, they have two. There is one journal I had purchased once that had 3 ribbons, but I typically don't see that. I usually see 2 ribbons. I also have, I love Post-it notes, so I'll have Post-it notes just kind of flipped all throughout my journal. Unfortunately, I'm forgetting where I got these, but I also got these really cute little magnetic, they're really thin magnetic bookmarks. Let's put it back down here. And these are really nice too for bookmarking. If you see anything like that, let me know, because I really can't remember where I bought them. Maybe they were Target, maybe it was Five Below. It was somewhere. It was somewhere like an actual store. But these are really fun too, for bookmarking. It also helps too, because like a lot of what we're talking about, you're going to have things that you want to flip back to. A table of contents is one way, but sometimes you want a little bit more of a tactile way to flip to it. These are really great questions. Thank you so much. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to work on our daily layouts next. And this is going to be something with a little less structure, because if I were to do this every day, something as complicated as my weekly, I probably wouldn't do it. So I like to use my daily layouts as a way to highlight my to-dos and my future tasks. Future just meaning anything that kind of comes up in the day of like, oh, Brittany, you should take a look into that. I'll write that down. Notes, this includes notes like as I'm developing, like if I'm working on like some coding or troubleshooting, any points of interest. I also keep that in my daily layout. So we're doing okay on time. I'll go ahead. I don't really have any good examples for this, I'll admit. This is just both from this year. Doing daily layouts is something that is pretty new for me, and I've really been enjoying it. Just sitting down and drawing this out and kind of thinking about my day. Up on the top, on the right-hand side, this is what we're going to go through. I write out my day. I have a section for some good vibes, some appreciations. I will sometimes kind of just write again what my day is, like just repeating what I have in my weekly spread in case it changes, or if I want to kind of review, like, am I preserving enough time for my development? And then like anything that's like today that I want to get done. So work on a testing task. I want to brainstorm from a presentation. Future is a section of, like I said, it's just if things come up in my head, I always have ideas. Sometimes they can be a little too overwhelming, and I'm like, just shut up. I'm going to put you on a piece of paper, and we'll figure out you later. So let's go ahead and let's walk through this. One thing I will also mention is I try to be a little bit smart about this. Earlier this year, I was gifted some really wonderful stencils, and I decided I'm going to try to make a stencil of my own. These are the stencils that I was gifted. It's almost like a deck of cards, like these like thin plastic. You have like all these really beautiful little spreads, fun shapes and borders. And so I thought I'd try to take it the next level and say, well, what can I make to sit down and be ready with my day? Because I wanted to try to have as little friction as possible. So I will show you how I use my stencil. This is something I just glued together a couple pieces of paper. I drew out with my stencils that you just saw on the paper. I glued together like 4 or 5 pieces of paper, let it dry, and then I took a box cutter and I punched it all out. And yeah, so I sit down and I start my day and I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. Let me at least just like have this one small achievement. I can have a very pretty spread. Actually, this one's a little too small for this journal, so we will finish it off like that. So that's kind of, once again, like creativity can come in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be something super beautiful and you know, planned out. But now I've got some fun little ribbons on my paper. You know, all it took was just the ability to trace. So let's go ahead, let's make this, we're just going to stick with our January example. Let's make this January 4th. I like to do a to-do and then the future. Bada bing, bada boom. I don't really know what you call this little shape. I just thought it was really cool. It's like a little like upside down kind of carrot. But I just add some visual interest. And then for my future, I always like to use hearts. I like to think that my bright ideas come out with me like, you know, like anime, like just heart eye emojis, like, I'm in love with this idea. Let us capture it. But yeah, this is your daily layout. It's pretty simple, as it should be, because you're starting your day and you know, you need a cup of coffee or some tea to really get some fuel going. So I usually, I can sometimes just pick up where I left off from work and know where I'm going to put here. But, you know, for hypotheticals here, say like, take training, you know, work on task. And it's something I've really been trying to push myself more is how can I break these down even smaller? Because I sometimes still kind of go in a really high levels, like do the task. Well, what do I need to do with the task? Well, I need to make header work. I need to add tests. I need to add click events. You know, I feel like a lot of this can sometimes be already explained in your task if you're a developer, or maybe it's not. Maybe you need to like talk with 6 different people to really know what you're supposed to be building. At least just be kind to yourself and know that you can look at this for the day and say, yes, I know what's going to happen today. Cool. Okay, follow-up question. How do you migrate to multiple journals from one to another, or a single journal from multiples? i.e., how do you depreciate? Yes, that is an excellent question, Anonymous. I will be talking about that at the end of this talk. So stay tuned. We'll be talking about how to migrate to a new journal. And thank you, Rashad. Yes, stencils. I probably have enough office supplies in this room to start up my own Office Depot. But it's just, like I said, just finding different ways that you can make something work. So we've gone through the 3 steps of how to kind of get started with your journal. You made your monthly layout, your weekly layout, and then your daily layout. These things can go a lot faster, just depending on what achievables you want. Like I mentioned before, you can print out a calendar for your monthly spreads. I used to do that when I worked in the office. I would print off a little calendar. I would resize it so it fits in my journal, and then I would just tape it in. If you find a hybrid planner journal like Passion Planner, you could probably even take this stuff to another level. And it's really nice with Passion Planner because it's such a really well-made product. Where's my Passion Planner? You know, a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about today is already provided to you. It already has a monthly layout. It already has a weekly layout. They even include a space for you for reflections. Here's my October. October was trash for me, which is why it's just gorgeously empty. But just an example for you all of what the Passion Planner looks like. Tweet at me if you want to know more about Passion Planner. It's a pretty good product made by really awesome people. And then, yeah, maybe you can also speed up what's not important. Maybe I don't need to list everything that's on my calendar. Maybe there's different ways that I want to focus on, you know, keeping track of my time management. And stencils. You can always use some more stencils. Etsy has a lot of stencils. You could find a lot of people that are willing to make them custom for you, like in metal or in, you know, kind of like this thin plastic that I have. These are available on Amazon. You can find them for like maybe $5 for a pack of 30. If you're interested in them, definitely give them a shot. I don't think that they really like make anything super remarkable for my experience, but just gives me new shapes to play with. Okay, we've been going through and answering questions, but just to remind you all again, please feel free to put some questions in the Q&A, and I understand now to scroll down my list. Okay, so let's take a little bit of step back and let's think about the setting intentional time with your journal. So you've got all these different beautiful pages that you made. You're thinking about the stuff. You got your markers out. You got your stencils, right? So what are the ways that you can form a habit to make sure that you're going to this often? So one way that you can do this is with chained habits. So think about it as like, after I do X, but before I do Y, I will journal. So after I sit down at my computer, but before I go to stand up, I will journal. A really fun app that I found recently that's available on Android and iOS is called Routinery. And it helps you with setting up routines, and it'll give you reminders. It takes a really quick moment to kind of set it up. You can, so like I have like a routine for the morning of like, wake up, feed my cat, brush my teeth, wash my face, write in my journal. And so like I put times for all of those. And then it'll buzz and I'll be like, okay, on to the next one. You can even just set up an alarm clock. Maybe you just set up a time at like 4 p.m. every day. I wanna be reflective. It can be different parts of the day too. Like I always have my journal open at work, so it doesn't have to just be a one and done thing. But what are the things that you could think about? I want everyone to think about this. What are the ways that you can go tomorrow or a Monday and form a habit with your journal? So we're not going to take a break. We're going to continue, or what we like to take a break. Let's take a break. We're going to take a break. And I want you to think about, as you're taking this break, when you're thinking, when do you think of using your journal? Can you start something right now to help you remember? So maybe that is going into your Google Calendar and assigning a reminder for yourself or something. We're going to go for 5 minutes, and I'll be back to get going again. And I'll answer some questions before I go on to the next part. Sounds good. I'm going to turn off my camera too, so I'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. Go ahead and close that. All right, so I forgot to edit this slide. Sorry about that. But, as you were taking a break, I feel like I have a smudge. All the sun is coming back out now here. It's really gorgeous out here in Michigan. I thought we were going to have a rainy day. So as you're taking a break, hopefully you're thinking about some examples of when you'll use your journal. You're welcome to give me some examples in the Q&A, or you can tweet at me on Twitter and give me some examples. We can definitely talk about it. But let's go ahead. We've got some other topics to do, y'all. So let's continue. So let's get reflective. And oh yes, let me go ahead and before I jump into the next part, I want to just read some of the comments that I see. Wendy says, loving this presentation. You're awesome at teaching. I always say is a life skill. Thank you so much, Wendy. That's really nice to hear. A lot of this is just something that I built over the years, being in tech, just trying to wrangle in like all the different parts of what I'm learning. I come from a boot camp background, so my first job as a developer was pretty overwhelming, and I kind of created this system to try to like wrangle it all together, especially just trying to remember and learn complex systems. And yay, 5-minute break gave me a chance to catch up. That's wonderful. I love to hear that. I definitely felt like a workshop needed a few breaks. We need to step away, let our minds process a little bit. So I'm glad that helped you. Okay, cool. Like I said, continue to reiterate, you're welcome to ask any questions in Q&A. We're going to go ahead and talk more about getting reflective. So kind of like when I was working on the monthly layouts, if y'all remember, I had some section I reserved for when it came to my end of the month review. You can also do some reflections throughout your week. So here's some more examples. questions. I feel like I always have a lot of like just like a treasure trove of questions because I'll sit down and I'm like, I don't know what I want to write about. So I always like to have a lot of different examples available because if I don't, I probably just won't do it. Let's be honest. I have here some weekly retro questions. I'll just read through them. How did I do this past week? How was my ability to focus? Has anything stopped me from reaching my goals? How can I improve for next week? What can I celebrate? Thinking about that gratitude, right? And what are some next actions? So one way that you can do this as you're following along is just to go to your next page in your journal and jot down some of these questions that really stand out to you. Maybe it's one question or two questions. You don't have to answer them right now, but just to have something available for you to flip back for reference. So let's see, what's the next question? Yeah, I'll do that with you all. So I'll leave this up and I'm going to write it just to be sure I give you enough space. But like I said, I'm going to post these slides later. But we'll just paste it like that. So would it help if I had them? I'll show you my camera afterwards. I'll just keep that up. So weekly retro. And how did I do this past week? How was my ability to focus? And what can I celebrate? I'm just going to write those as 3 questions. And I'm going to flip through and I'm going to add some stickers. So as you're writing this, I'm going to reveal my page in just a second, y'all. I just want to keep this up here so you can see what are some questions that you can write down. Ooh, this is a good sticker. Okay. Okay, so here's an example of how I would do this. And I would go through and I would kind of write these down. I would actually give myself some more room, honestly. And I would just kind of write them out like a worksheet. Like I mentioned before, this can be really a nice, you can keep it like at this page. You can keep it at this page and you can write it in your table of contents. So weekly reflection questions. And I actually ran out of page numbers. Ooh, so 12, this is on page 14. I often like to, if I have a notebook that has no page numbers, I like to work on numbering my pages during a time that's kind of boring. So that way, you know, I can keep my mind occupied on like listening and yeah, just fill those up. So yeah, you can take that time to write some questions. Here's some other examples I also wanted to show you. Like, it changes so much for me. Like, I had an old checklist where I kind of like had like an even more kind of enumerated monthly review of like reviewing my 90-day goals, take a moment to do my monthly reflection, draw my next month's spread, and then I'll answer these questions. My current checklist is a little bit different because at work we have something that helps facilitate reflections called team spaces, and I think that they have a lot of good questions. So why repeat what you don't need to do? So I just reflect in that, and then if there's anything additional that I want to just write about, especially something that's more private because it's a company tool, I'll take that time to do it in my journal. And maybe that's more just about like how I'm feeling, how I'm you know, just dealing with things emotionally. I like to flip through the past week of the dailies and check on what I wrote in my future section. And then I try to, like, you know, find a place where those can be prioritized. If it as at all is even necessary. Sometimes, like I said, I get a lot of good ideas and I'm like, maybe not all of it needs to be done. And then I'll make my calendar for the next sprint. That's my next step. And then something I've also been trying to consider too is what should be captured in digital note taking. So someone had a question about that earlier about how do you migrate stuff. I've been really reflective on that lately. Like, is it something I want to bring to another journal, like another paper journal, or is it something that maybe could go into like a digital note for you know, my personal note taking, or even for the team. So that's something I've also been considering lately. So here's an example. This is from my job I had last year of my weekly retro. I taped a piece of paper on the front of my cover and I wrote my questions down. So right now I've got a Post-it note, but you know, you can do a piece of paper. Where's that particular journal? I'll show it to you on the camera. Okay, so here's this journal. And then this is my first page, like just the inner jacket, I guess you call it. And then I used some washi tape and I had like a little notebook paper. I cut that out and I wrote down my questions. So that way, like, no matter what page you are in the book, you can flip to it and have that available instead of kind of like what I just did on this page, where I just have it, like, you know, mixed in with everything else. If you look around on the bullet journal community, you may hear the terminology of a Dutch door. And that's kind of what I try to model there. A Dutch door is simply like taking a piece of paper and kind of extracting it out so you can see other pieces while you interact with the journal. Okay, so we'll take a moment to do a little bit of exercise. I'm going to set let's do a 2-minute timer. And I want you to write down within your weekly or your monthly layout when you'll have a retro with yourself, answering some of these questions that you just captured. List 2 things that you want to reflect on. Maybe that is about your goals, maybe it's something about your team, and we'll go ahead and we'll take a pause for that. Okay. So how can I capture this? 2-minute timer. There we go. And yeah, let's just go ahead and let's work on that, and I'll continue. Okay. I just noticed, Faris, you mentioned that the deck cam is frozen. I just wanted to check in and see if that has resolved. Sorry for missing that message. Or Iman, is everything looking good on your end?
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right, so we just took 2 minutes to just kind of think about where we're going to capture, when we're going to take some time in our week or our month to do a retro with ourselves. And I just wanted to show you an example. If you go back to my tabletop, on Friday, I highlighted about a 2-hour block of reflection. What I typically like to do is in my calendar event on my computer, I'll kind of type out some checklist points of what I want to do, like I mentioned before. But you can also just put it on a piece of paper. You know, you could take that page that you did your weekly retro, and I just kind of left it blank. But maybe you have a checklist of some things that you want to check on. So some examples of like a checklist within a retro is, maybe you want to use that time to clean up your desk. Maybe you want to use that time to go through and sort through all of your junk mail, throw that out. This is a time not only just for writing in your journal, but also just kind of like collecting yourself all throughout the week of the hubbub of everything. Okay, so like I said in the beginning of this whole workshop, I don't do everything I'm telling you. I don't always have answers to these questions. And some weeks I may just have one question that I can answer, or I just feel like I just need to free write. There's no rules to it. Just these are different suggestions to help give you some guidance. And it's totally okay if there's weeks where it's like I really don't know what to say, or I don't have an answer to this particular question. Maybe you just want to free write and see where your mind takes you. You may note during your personal retro things that you're thinking about your team. How is the interpersonal dynamics doing? Maybe you want to think about how there's that one person that always is the one to jump and help with like escalation issues. Maybe there are things that you're thinking about like, hey, I want to help out, but where do I have a chance to jump in? Those are kind of the things that you want to touch on as you're going through and being reflective. Maybe you want to use this time to think about your professional progress and achievements. Something that is Julia Evans, she talks a lot about, is a brag document. This is during your personal retro is a great time to work on that brag document of like highlighting the things that you're really kicking butt about, and you want to make sure that you're capturing so you can use it for your own professional review at work, or if you're trying to find a new job, you want to be able to have those things available that you can just pull out and say, oh, you want to know how awesome I am? Well, let me just pull from my bag of all my awesomeness. And then thoughts are just about like what is and isn't working. There could be things throughout the week that you're just feeling constantly feels like it's an uphill battle. Maybe you want to take a moment to write about that. So the options are endless. So next, we're going to talk about some goal setting. We've got about a half hour left to this workshop. So we'll be talking about goal setting, and then we'll be talking about the migrating to a new journal. So a lot of what I've been talking about has been in the kind of the focus of goal setting. And I do want to touch on that today. A lot of people talk about goals and how to set goals. And I want to encourage you all to find inspiration and guidance for how to set those. There isn't one magical way of how you can set goals. There's a lot of amazing nonfiction and self-help books out there already. Maybe you have already in place some sort of mentorship or sponsorship that can help you with capturing those goals. Research shows that having goals listed somewhere can anywhere it is. I think it could even be just as inconsequential as like writing it on a napkin, but writing down your goals can help you lead to actually achieving those goals. So that place for you, that's going to be your journal. You don't have to use a napkin. You can use a journal to be able to capture those goals. But think about it like that. Like you don't want to keep, I often like to say, like, you don't want to have all the most important stuff floating up here in your head, because that's psychologically very taxing. Anything that is most important should not be floating in your head. You want to write those down on a piece of paper. You want to capture them somewhere, whether that's the to-do list that keeps cycling through your head on and on again, or your goals. Write those down. Get those from floating out of your head. So when you're getting started with goal setting, I have 3 things that I recommend for you to consider. I recommend taking some time to set aside and have a day of goal reflection. From what I've read, like you can do a really huge self-care kind of day, like book a day at a nice hotel, get yourself a spa. These are probably not things you want to do right this moment in the pandemic, but think about it like that capacity. It's a day of just bringing so much self-love to yourself and encouragement and nourishment for you to be able to see what's possible for the next moment in life. You want to write out some different areas of where you want to grow. So one example that I've done this is I have for my professional journal. For my professional journal, I just wrote out all the different technologies that we're using and what are some things that I want to make a stride for within each of those categories. Think about like what you want to journal for and what are some different areas within that realm that you want to focus on. You can free write your goals and then prioritize and set them. So what that means is take a moment just to kind of like throw stuff at a wall of like, goals that could be wild beyond our, imagination. Free write them out and then take a moment to kind of clean them up and see what can be, most important, and then set them. Try to start off with this with like giving yourself the most space possible before you're actually like really trying to rein it in and give some reality to it. I often encourage people to think about their goal setting in 90-day goals because it's a short enough of a long time. 90 days right now would be what, March, I believe, March. So, that feels super far away, but it comes up faster than you think. Or even think about like, where were you 90 days ago? So 90 days from today would have been September, right? Where were you in September? What kind of things were you thinking about you were going to achieve in September? It's December 12th today. Did you achieve them? So just think about it like in that kind of capacity. Like you want to just capture your goals in small chunks. I would even say right now, like as things are kind of complicated during the pandemic, there's a lot of things that you might be dealing with that are unprecedented. Even think about smaller goals. What could you do that's achievable in a month? What's achievable for you in the next 2 weeks? These are all also very appropriate ways to set goals. So the next thing that we'll do is we're going to free write our goals for 2 minutes. And then we're going to pick one goal and break down the goal into the 5 next steps to get to that goal and what can be scheduled. And then think about what can be scheduled in your next month. Okay, I'm going to set a timer again for 2 minutes and I'll check back in with you. And I'll show you kind of what I've done. Okay, 2 minutes definitely goes by quickly, doesn't it? This is definitely something I encourage you to come back around to. I'm going to put another minute on the clock. I want you now to pick one goal and break that down into 5 steps. So if you only had a chance to write one goal, that's okay. Well, we'll just try to find 5 different pieces of it that you can break down. And then I'll check back in again in a minute. Okay, so now we've taken a moment to break down into 5 goals, and then what can we schedule into your next month? I'm going to switch over now. Let me turn my camera back on, get all my pieces back in order. So as we were taking those 3 minutes to kind of work on this is something I just kind of came up with. So maybe a goal I have super big is I want to launch a mobile app for Google Play. And in order to do that, I want to learn Flutter. Well, some things I can break down. This is really starting still super high level is, start thinking about the different steps that you have to go through. Maybe I want to learn Flutter. Well, what are some things I want to consider? Maybe there's a Udemy course, maybe there's a book, maybe there's a conference. What you want to do then is you can figure out like I said, this is all about in the context of 90 days. So maybe with breaking it down, Flutter is going to be your 90-day goal. And so then you're going to say, well, what can I do? What's achievable by March? These things that you can list that are achievable. So maybe I'm going to say I'm going to finish a Udemy course by March. I'm just going to circle that, make it feel nice and official. We're going to do it in a green pen. Although I feel like this ink is drying out. Okay, so we're going to switch to another nice green color. I'm going to do a Udemy course. And what I can do is I can flip back to my month. And I can list that here. So maybe once a week, I would want to write in here, I want to make some progress on Flutter. So maybe I want to finish a section of my Flutter course. So finish section 2 of Flutter. And well, I'm going to a conference, so I definitely can't do it that week. So you know, now my goal is maybe being pushed out a little bit. So finish section 2. Let's finish section 3 of Flutter. And so that's kind of how, like, a way that I'm navigating around through this. I put my goals on my monthly planner. Now, this is a calendar for the week of January 4th through the 8th, and I'm saying I want to finish section 2 of Flutter. So I've already got a couple of to-dos on my Tuesday, but now I also need to think about scheduling time for my Flutter course. And you can even, on your weekly spreads, capture in this project section stuff about your goals. So let's use a pretty pen. Goals. Learn Flutter. Cool. So that's kind of how I interact with my goals and with the spreads that we went through earlier, and scheduling things that can be done. So we're building this all for a hypothetical next month of January. So this is already still pretty far into the next month. So maybe you even want to start thinking about for February. Well, what do you need to do for that? I need to first make a spread for February, and I need to be able to write down the things that I want to achieve. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to put it into the Q&A section. We're going to go ahead and continue moving on. Here's some examples of my previous journals of, oops, you can see my screen. Yeah, okay. Of the previous journals, like I said before, I have like a goal dump. So just like listing out some, like, you know, different high level things that I want to do, you know, Sumo Logic certification. Maybe I want to take some classes on Test Automation University. I want to learn Emotion, which was a really fun library to discuss professionally. Emotion, all the emotion. Maybe, like I mentioned before, I listed out like my growth areas. Maybe that's something that you want to do. I list out 7. I think that's 7, yeah. And then I just kind of wrote in some different things that I was seeing, you know, that could be a goal that I could set. And then I started playing around with this idea of like a goal achieving plan, creating a 5-minute plan, a SMART goal, and then breaking it down into 5 achievable steps. I feel like I'm still kind of playing around with the idea. I think I have more luck working in something like Asana for kind of capturing this high level stuff, but to each their own. I've got a question over here. Do you also allocate time using journaling for research to achieve your goals? In this case, you need to know that Flutter Udemy course has 3 or 4 sections. Yeah, so if I already kind of picked out like a workshop that I want to do, I'll try to write down, like, you know, what is the sections that they're listing. The Udemy course that I actually have for Flutter was really nice and organized like that. Like they had like a page that I can kind of, you know, crop and take a picture of and put in my journal to kind of see like what are the milestones that I'm going through, so that you could definitely use your journal for that. Please note that if you have any feedback at all about how, okay, yes, thank you. Please take the survey. I definitely look forward to hearing your thoughts. And yeah, if you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A. Okay, so the question from earlier, we're finally getting to. Thank you for your patience for that one person that had a question about migrating journals. I think they were also anonymous. Thank you, anonymous. New journals and migrations. So some things to consider. when you're going to a new journal, maybe you want to think about moving the notes to a digital app. Are there things in your journal that you're going to and reference a lot, especially like in a professional sense? Like if you have a page that shows you all the different steps it takes to SSH into some remote database to then interact and do this and that, that probably doesn't need to be in your journal, especially if you're like the only person who knows those particular steps. So think about like maybe what are the ways to preserve that so that whole team understands it, or maybe it's something that you're going to throw into like your Microsoft OneNote or something like that. I've also been hearing the concept of a digital garden lately that I really jam with, of like your digital garden is something that you tend to, just like a real garden, it has a whole bunch of different features in it that encapsulates like what you find most valuable. That's something I want to try to develop myself, is a digital garden. Something why I've really been trying to go through and overhaul my personal website, tnotes.dev, because I do eventually want to have a section that's a digital garden. There's also some conversations lately about like public personal notes. Maybe you want to take notes that you're capturing in your journal. Maybe you want to capture for people your learning process of going through and learning Flutter, or going through assessing the an architecture audit. Maybe there's things from that you want to share to people. It could definitely be written up into something more formal, like a blog post, or maybe, I don't know. It can go a lot of different directions. Maybe you just want to take a picture and just throw it up on the web and say, hey, here it is. But there's different things that you can think about for like how to migrate. I even stumbled upon this Gatsby theme about code notes, which I really liked. I wanted to highlight here. It's essentially, it looks like it's like building your own, what is it called? Your own like, it's on the tip of my tongue, your coda.io or like Notable kind of website. But it's a Gatsby themed, and you have the whole control over it and you can build it up. I really like the ideas of these kind of things. And let me know if you have any other suggestions. Consider your day of goal reflection also a day where you set up a new journal. If you're already taking a whole day, why not also spend some time prettying up a new journal? I did that personally when I was working on this journal, and it was really helpful because I was able to kind of plan out what I wanted to do, like with my goals, and really have like a well laid out like beginning of my journal. So like my goals and tracking all of that, tracking like having a section for like my year at a glance. These are things that you can do if you set aside a day to really focus on all of this. I know that's definitely a privileged thing to suggest to people. So, see if there's ways that you can break it down too. Like maybe, you spend an hour once a month or something of that capacity. Just think about like, you want to make sure that this is something that can set you up for success. And so, yeah, so I guess I don't really cover more about that. I do apologize. Another thing I'll add too, we're going off the script. When I'm migrating through, I'll think about like what are the pieces that I want to continue to do. Maybe I don't want to do an elaborate monthly spread. Maybe I want something simpler. Or even right now for myself, I don't even do a monthly spread. Maybe there are ways that I want to structure overall the interaction with it. So, like for this journal, I have like my little Dutch door, as you call it, in the front. Maybe I want to preserve something in the back. I don't typically migrate too much from journal to journal. And if I do, it's probably going to be the goals that I'm setting. And I'm going to rewrite those. And it's also an opportunity as you're rewriting them to think like, is this still something I want to do? Is this still on track of like what I really want to achieve? I would say that that's probably the essence of my migrations. And I hope, Anonymous, that helps answer your question from earlier. If you have any additional questions, feel free to tweet me and we could talk about it. In conclusion for today, you have just started up your BAMF journal, your badass motherfucking journal, if I can swear for a second. You are going to be able to rock on with your goals and your aspirations. And if you play like a game like Crusader Kings where there is a journaler trait, you have just increased your learning by +1. Woo! And you have increased your stress loss by +20%. Woo! So you're on your road to having a really great beginning of the year. I have here some cool places of inspiration. Like I recommend definitely reading the Bullet Journal Method by writer Carol. I really like the blog littlecoffeefox.com. She has a lot of really great content that's free, that, you know, even getting into like beautiful creative journals, like she does like watercolor. She goes into a lot of really cool techniques with painting in your journal. YouTube, I really like Amanda Rach Lee. She just came out with her own bullet journal, so that's awesome. In Bullet Journal, writer Carol also has some really amazing YouTube videos. On Instagram, I feel like I enjoy navigating through bullet journal pictures more through the hashtag. So I enjoy following hashtag creative journal, hashtag bullet journal love, hashtag weekly spread, and then hashtag plan it with me. Yeah, all of this is to say, like, look not for the aesthetic, but for the creativity in finding a way to illustrate and track a particular aspect of our lives. If you're just looking at this stuff and copying word for word, you're probably doing it wrong. Instead, look at it and say, oh, I really appreciate how they take time to, you know, track their water, or I really like how they're tracking their stress levels. See what you can do to add that and adopt it to your own journal. And if all of this, you're just like, you sat here for 2 hours, you're like, girl, I really do not want to be carrying around all this paper. We got, you know, trees, rainforests are dying. What are you doing? I definitely recommend some of these digital tools. I really like Todoist. I really like the Notability app on my iPad. I also really like Zinnia, which is also a really cool bullet journal tool. I've been playing around with a lot of stuff on like the iPad for bullet journaling, but if you have anything you can suggest for Android or even for computer, please feel free to share. And here's a picture of some of the tools I use today. I have, like I said, I'll share my links, my slides. These are all linked to different places around the internet where you can purchase them. And yeah, thank you so much. I am so excited I had a chance to talk with you all today about my creative journaling. How do you get started? And thank you so much, Microsoft Reactor, for having me today. And that is everything.
Brittany, can I say something?
Sure.
Perfect. First of all, thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Brittany, for putting together such a great workshop. I just want to tell everyone, if you're not part of the Reactor community already, please do consider joining us on Meetup or directly through our Microsoft page. You can also follow us on Twitter, or even check this recording or any previous recorded workshop on our YouTube link. And at the end, as we mentioned before, please, we'd love to hear your feedback on this event. I'll also share the link again with the code for this event, so you can go ahead and give us what you think. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I'm still alive. Yes, thank you so much. As I said at the beginning, you know, feel free to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, tnotes.dev. And yeah, I appreciate everyone coming today. Thank you. That's all for today.